The 2022 car show season begins. Hello, I'm your host, Gary Neidert. Thanks for listening to My First Ride podcast, and thanks for watching. You haven't noticed yet, these podcasts are about nostalgia, automotive nostalgia. You know, reliving the events, the sights, the smells, and emotions of special memories connected to our first rides. Said another way, it's about allowing our memories to travel back in time and experience our special car moments all over again. The 2022 car show season started for me in February at the 62nd Autorama, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts. There were cars, trucks, and motorcycles displayed in every part of Dallas Market Hall. Also, vendors selling t-shirts, tools, and more were available to sell all kinds of great stuff to the attendees. Meguiar's Polish was there in a big display at the front of the show. Now, this is a little side treat here. I found a video that's on YouTube that is from the first Autorama in 1960 held in Dallas, Texas. It's in black and white. There's no audio, but go check it out because it's interesting to see the difference between the cars from 1960 to now, and maybe some differences that are they're the same. So go check it out. It was refreshing to see more than a bunch of older guys, which I happen to be one, checking out the great rides in the show. I mean, I noticed several younger people looking over the vehicles that were displayed. And there were some younger families there as well. And my hope is the younger generations will keep the interest in hot rods, custom cars, and car shows alive and well. Now, from the looks of the crowd, I think that's happening. On March 5th, I was ready for some more car shows. I've been waiting for several months through the winter. So on March 5th, there were 2 car shows in the North Dallas area that I attended. The first one I went to was the first annual car show at Christian City Church in Rowlett, Texas. And many cars were expected to be on display, but unfortunately, early morning showers kept most cars away. However, there were at least 3 Shelby Cobras and a few other great rides to look at. There was a cherry older Ford pickup, I must say probably in the mid to late 60s. Beautiful truck. But this was one that was great. To my surprise, a friend of mine was there with her 1967 Pontiac Firebird. And I had no idea she was into cars, although it shouldn't be a big surprise considering her son is big time into building cars. Now, her car is more than just an old Firebird. It's a Survivor with the overhead cam straight 6. Very cool, and I think quite rare. Now, according to Wikipedia, the engine in my friend's car, a W53 Sprint 230 cubic inch Pontiac single overhead cam, had 215 horsepower. Get this. This is a shockaroo. That's more power. That's more horsepower than the 1977 Trans Am. You know, the car Smokey and the Bandit made famous. How about that? Well, I hope CITC continues to go forward with more car shows in the future. There are a great bunch of people serving Rowlett, Texas, and beyond. So the next car show was in Murphy, Texas. It's just a few miles from where I live. The event is produced by Mustang Sally Productions, and they typically have a show monthly in this area. Plus, they have shows in other parts of the North Dallas area monthly. Now, I'll include the link so you can go check them out in the show notes. The link will be for the show calendar, but go check out the rest of their website as well. So when I left the show in Rowlett, I went by the show in Murphy to see if many cars were there. Of course, several cars were on display by that time. And since I had to go back home and take care of a few things, I left. As I was leaving the parking lot and about to turn onto Highway 544, I noticed a beautiful 2022 Camaro turning into the parking lot. I could hear it before it drove next to me. And surprise, Dennis Collins of Collins Brothers Jeep in Wiley, Texas was driving. He publishes a weekly video on YouTube called Coffee Walk. And it just so happens on the episode posted the Friday before the show, he did a teaser of a new car he bought, a 2022 Copo Camaro. That's what he was driving. A beautiful car and sounds fantastic. Of course, he did a little burnout when pulling into the parking lot. Well, I come back to the show after taking care of my chores at the house, and I walked around and admired the cars. It's always worth going to see what might be new. Just before I was about to leave, I heard a car start that sounded familiar. Sure enough, it was Dennis Collins in his new Copo Camaro. He wasn't part of the show, but parked a couple of rows over. And I wanted to go get some photos, but he was leaving before I could get over there. As he pulled away with a burnout or two, I observed something very interesting. About 10 people were standing around the car, and when he left and punched it, everyone started laughing with glee. I mean, they were giddy, and I started laughing too. Is this what raw power does to a car guy or a car girl observing a burnout? It was a great treat to watch and hear the Copo Camaro at the end of the day of going to car shows. I'll include a link to the teaser he did on YouTube and a link showing both Dennis and his daughter picking up the car in Detroit from Copo. Go watch both because they're great stories. In fact, all his videos are great stories of barn finds, car rescues, and more. So those links will also be in the show notes. I don't know about you, but I'm glad car show season has started. Maybe I'll see you at the one in Murphy or Bass Pro Shop in Garland in the future. What's coming up next on My First Ride? Well, I'm constantly searching for people that would enjoy telling the stories of their first rides and how their lives were influenced by them. And I bet you probably know someone that would be a great guest for My First Ride podcast, right? Well, let me know a little bit about them and their story. What about you telling your story on the podcast? Let me know a little bit about you and your first ride. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. And of course, you can also go to the website at myfirstridepodcast.com. One final thought. You may not have your first ride, but you still have the memories. It's time to share them. Contact me if you have any questions regarding today's podcast or you'd like to be a guest on My First Ride podcast. Send an email to, what else? myfirstridepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Gary Neidert, and you've just experienced My First Ride podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.